Sligo. So we've got a tidal island and we've got 3 to 4 bedroom homes for under 200k euros. Why would anyone want to live in Dublin again? So we've just recently come back from a trip to Sligo. We spent about a little over a week there, and so of course we're going to give you the usual places to live in Ireland. And this time our first location outside of Dublin. Yes, so doing this from the comfort of our own home, because when you walk as much as we did on this trip, you'll hear about it later, just hikes and walking. I think we hit about 70 kilometers. Yeah, we're a bit too tired to record, so same content, lots of lovely B-roll. You'll see exactly what we experienced, and we're going to start that right now. Yeah, and don't forget to subscribe, because after you see what Sligo looks like on a beautiful sunny day, you're going to want to.
We're in Sligo, a small town on the west coast of Ireland along the wild Atlantic Way. It's about 220 kilometers from Dublin, or about 3 hours by car and similar amount by train. There is a direct train connection between Dublin and Sligo, which is pretty convenient. I say small town because it has about 19,000 inhabitants, which makes it a little bit bigger than Greystones, but also a little bit smaller than towns like Letterkenny or Wexford. It is also a student town, which means that during semester times it can get a bit busier with a lot more younger people moving in for their studies and then moving out again during summer, and in exchange, I guess, you get all the tourists coming there for the outdoor activities.
So in good weather, Sligo is definitely a vibe. We were lucky that even in late September, we were able to come and get a few days of great weather. So during this time, we stayed at an Airbnb, which was about 15 minutes walk outside of the town, and this location was just perfect. It was just something like a 30-20 minute bus ride then to the nearest beach, Strand Hill, which I'll talk about a bit later, and we've had the beautiful nature all around. We're talking about lovely hills which we hiked up, and one of our best moments of being in Sligo, just being in the city or even outside of the city, and you just look up and see these majestic hills right there in the distance. Now of course we always love location, and we were very pleased to know that even without being inside the city, being 15 minutes walk outside, we didn't need to get to the city to actually get any supplies. No, there was honestly the biggest Centra I've ever seen right there. And of course, if you're going into the city, you've got your Lidl's, you got your Tesco, you've got your Aldi's. In fact, there is built another Lidl out there as well. So there is no lack of your amenities, and for people that like, Penny/Primark, they've got one too. This town may be small, but it's jam-packed full of those usual amenities that you're looking for. Sligo might be the perfect town for you if you're an outdoorsy type. There is just so much outdoors. That's basically what we did for the entire trip. And one of the things we really love is that our perfect combination of a day out is that we go walk ourselves tired of observing the beautiful nature, and then we come back to a good, nice meal. And in Sligo, there is no shortage. They've got this cute little waterside area where there's pretty much a line of different restaurants. We had some really good food there, and it was just great that we didn't have to go too far away to then be surrounded by lots of different options and choices to eat. Definitely one of the highlights of our trip was climbing up to Maeve's grave. And yeah, we're going to go into a bit more detail of the adventures we had in a separate video. So we were just there for a week, but in this time we managed to go several places for different hikes and views and just have a relaxing day. On one of our first days there, we went to the tidal island, and you can see, there's a lovely beach there. You know me and beaches, I thumbs up for this one. I can simply imagine that on summer days, come there at the first tide and then leave on the second. And I see lots of opportunities in the area to probably have lovely days out like that.
So when we researched what the housing situation is like, we found that actually a lot of the houses were built after 1980. So they are relatively new, but if you look for houses to buy, there are a lot of fixer-uppers, like the bear ratings are really low. And you can also tell a bit by looking at them. They'll need some renovations to, not freeze you to death in the winter and just make them a bit nicer. But there are a lot of pretty cheap, if you're coming from Dublin, pretty cheap properties. Like there were houses as low as 100k there. And also looking at the upper end, like there were houses for 500k, which in Dublin gets you, your semi-detached sort of house in a certain area, versus there were houses for like, once it gets to like 500k and up, you're like talking about 14 rooms, or the size starts getting measured in acres. So definitely you're getting a lot more for your money out in the west of Ireland. However, when it comes to renting, so if you're not looking to buy, it gets very tricky very quickly. So when we were doing our research, it was late in September. Remember how I said earlier it's a student town? So I did expect that probably students come in from early in September or maybe from August and swoop up all the rental places because they have to stay somewhere for the semester, they're not going to buy a house. But it's really hard to find anything to rent. Like in the entire county Sligo, there were 5 places to rent when we were looking it up, and not a single one in the actual Sligo town. So my next thought was, of course, so how do the students find accommodation, like if the university doesn't, provide enough for everyone? And as if Google is reading my mind, I get an article suggested about how there's actually students having to defer their course because they can't find accommodation. And my next thought, of course, was also like, I wonder how many Airbnbs there are. Turns out a lot. I was looking up a random date because I figured to exclude people who might let their houses as Airbnbs in summer and then for students during semester time. So I looked for a random time during when uni would be going on, and there were over 300 properties. So in that sense, Sligo is a lot like Dublin, unfortunately, that the housing situation, although stuff is cheaper, can still be quite tricky if you're looking for somewhere to rent. And it was quite sad to see that one of the first things we noticed upon walking into Sligo town was also homeless people sleeping on the streets, just like in Dublin city centre. So the housing situation in a lot of ways seems to be just as much of a problem as it is in Dublin. Of course, on the buying side, there's more options and much more affordable options than you would have in Dublin. And also a lot of the houses, like we saw a lot of houses that were really gorgeous, obviously very expensive, but they looked very custom and really people putting on their personal touch, versus, in Dublin when you go to a neighborhood and every house looks the same, like a horror movie, and you're like, you don't even remember maybe which was which if you come home in the dark. So there is a wide variety if you're looking to buy, but if you're looking to rent, it can be really hard. One curious thing we noticed about the houses is that when you first go to the city centre, the buildings might look very old and some of them not as well maintained as you might expect, let's put it that way. But if you go for a walk and the further you walk away from the city centre, it's almost like a gradual improvement. The houses start looking newer, they start looking more well maintained. So there you can clearly see how the city grew over time, and if you're looking for a newer place, you're most likely going to find it on the outskirts of Sligo, or have to find a sort of compromise where you get a place that's a bit older that you might have to do a little bit of renovation on, but not as much as you would have to do on a really old place as in the city centre.
In conclusion, Sligo gives us a glimpse at what living outside of Dublin could be like. You will be surrounded by gorgeous nature and hills, and with good access to amenities if you live close to Sligo town. If you want to live here, buying a house is cheaper than Dublin, although renting will be difficult. Although there's a lot of traffic in and around the city centre, it feels like a peaceful place to live. Feel free to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to see other places we visit in Ireland.